Okay, so I believe we are now in the third short story review that jointly won the Hugo and the Nebula. The first one is Jeff TS5. The second one I reviewed is The Paper Menagerie. Today I'll be talking about the short story entitled The Grotto of the Dancing Deer by Clifford D. Simak. Unfortunately, I don't have a hard copy of this one. In fact, I don't have any hard copy of any works of Clifford Simak at all. It's very hard to find, but so it is in my Kindle, so that's fine with me. My first introduction to the works of Clifford D. Simak is his very famous novel known as City, which is in fact comprised of various short stories that are linked together, about the future of planet Earth, where in the future there are only a very few humans left, and then the dogs, okay, are already intelligent and they're the ones that are in charge of planet Earth. Okay, it's really a very fascinating novel. I read it last year as part of the our reading in our group reads, and so he also has other famous short stories, but this one is the one that those also won like the Hugo or the Nebula. This one is unique because it won both of them, and at the same time it also won the Locus Award for Best Short Story. Okay, I believe this one in the 1981. But let's talk about this short story briefly, and then we'll talk about the review. It's a very short story about this guy named Boyd, a anthropologist, or the guy who dig caves, look at cave paintings, and then a guy named Lewis who he met 10 years prior when he was like doing his excavations in the place that he was assigned to. So he one time when he was like on his last day in that cave, like everything's done, they've seen everything else, Boyd has this nagging feeling that there's something that he missed. Sometimes there's something will cross our mind, like we can't pinpoint what it was. So it's like there's something like that. And so Boyd was like, instead of going back to his country, to the US, to Paris, I think, he wanted to look at the cave one last time. And then this guy Lewis invited him over for one last dinner. Like, hey Lewis, let's I mean Boyd, let's have some dinner. It's on me for the last time. And so before doing that, Boyd went into this cave, and then he found this area where they haven't seen before. He found this fissure, I mean, not feature, a very well hidden wall. It was blocked by rocks and so on that didn't find before. He dug it. He found like a very tiny tunnel or pathway. He was crawling, right? He reached the end of the wall. He was like, God, there's nothing here. How come someone like um, tried their best to hide it, but that there's nothing here? He was like crawling. His back is like on the ceiling of the tunnel that he was crawling on. But then he decided to like turn his back. At the top, he saw a grotto, like an opening that he can like stand, and then when he poked his head in, he placed the flashlight. You have all these sorts of paintings, new paintings that he hasn't seen before, right? Very, very well made, even better than the paintings that they found outside, okay? And inside, he found what seems to be the remains of the stuff that the painter, the ancient painter used, and so on. And the nice thing is that he found a pipe, a bone pipe, which peculiarly, it weirdly looks like the bone pipe that this guy Lewis, who he met 10 years ago, is also playing. Lewis has this like sort of a bone that looks like a flute. He keeps on playing it, and then he's like, "Oh man, this cannot be. Don't tell me that how Louis, the one who made all this, how did he hide this and so on." So what he did was, he went on with that dinner. He brought a wine and so on, but he didn't tell Louis about the finding. And then later on, he kept that finding a secret to his like fellow researchers. He went and smuggled those items, including the pipe and so on, that he found. There was a fingerprint there. He wanted to test if it really matched with the fingerprint of Louis. and then he found uh, very amazingly that that painting, which was like 22,000 years old, and that fingerprint matched the fingerprint of Louis, the guy who he met in the present era. So he thought about it, whether he would like divulge the entire finding to the world, whether he would divulge to us that, he knows this guy who is 22,000 years old. But instead, he went back to the place. He talked to Louis, and of course, Louis like owned up to it. Louis was like, "Yeah, I'm like 22,000 years old, and in fact, he's actually a Cro-Magnon." And he began, detailing how he in fact, he does not know biological or biologically or scientifically why he lived so long, but he tried all his tactics and all the different ways that he tried in order to survive. Because according to Boyd, this is not the only thing that would kill you. There could be like accidents or people could kill you. How did you survive that? And so Lewis mentioned all his tactics and so on. And then finally, Boyd asked, "So why did you, if all these tactics you mentioned talks about being hidden, keeping your secrets, all these years for 22,000 years, why did you reveal it to me?" Okay, and eventually, Boyd said that, I've been so lonely. I just want to know that, for all these 22,000 years, at least there's a single person who knows who I am. Because, Louis has been lonely, and then he wanted someone to know his existence, to like, to not just his existence, but to realize that he is a guy who lives for a very long time. Okay, and he mentioned that he could at least find solace in that, and for the next few centuries in the future, he won't be lonely anymore, knowing that he told someone his secret. Okay, and so eventually, Lewis went out, and then the story ended with like Boyd looking out at Lewis. Is like, "No, Lewis, don't go away. Like, there are a lot of things that we need to talk about." And in that scene, Boyd, saw this loneliness associated with a guy who is an immortal. Okay, it has a very nice premise. It's really good. My problem is that I did not enjoy the short story as I thought that I would, for exactly the same reasons that I pointed out regarding Neuromancer. In my very first YouTube video, I talked about William Gibson's Neuromancer, and I said that it is very good, but I compared it with recent works that I've already seen, which are done better. And unfortunately, this one, the Grotto of the Dancing Deer, I've already seen a story similar to this one, which is that of Jerome Bixby's The Man from Earth. So if you haven't seen that movie, it has the same premise: a guy who lived for like 20,000 years, and then he's with us. Okay, so um, the problem is the latter work, Bixby's work, is so much better. It focuses on the man who lived for so long. Simak, talked about it a little bit, but he focused on the, the emotions, and then the feelings of a man who is immortal. But I'm more into the, the mechanics, the logistics of, what could be possible if you're an immortal. And in The Man from Earth, it was like fleshed out. Of course, granted, that was like a full-length film. This is just a short story, but still, when we talk about like um, immortals, or people who live all throughout the, the uh, time when the humans evolved from being cavemen up to what we are now. If you want something like that, then I'd recommend The Man from Earth instead of reading The Growth of the Dancing Deer. But in and of itself, I got what it is going for, and I appreciate why it won the Hugo and the Nebula again. And if I hadn't read, or if I hadn't seen The Man from Earth before reading this, it would have been, it would have been awesome. So it is good, but I still find City to be, up there in terms of works that could immortalize Clifford the Simak. Okay, so that's it. That's my review for, again, the Grotto of the Dancing Deer. Next time, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna read Repent Harley Quinn, Said a TikTok Man, or maybe Bears Discover Fire. So we'll see what I can find first. Okay, so that's it for my review, and thank you for watching.